Welcome back to the final cut. Today we have Toby Dicker and Colette Osborne, who are going to tell you all about the work that they're doing behind the scenes in the barbering and hairdressing industry to make this a better place to work. Let's get over to the podcast. Welcome back to the final cut. Hope you're all enjoying our brand new podcast as they're coming out to you all in the hairdressing and barbering industry. On today, we've got a fantastic show to show you and listen to. Have you ever wondered about the people behind the industry who are having that voice to make our industry better, who probably got our backs on so many different topics? And so today I'm joined by Toby Dicker and Colette Osborne, and they're going to share with us some of the insights to what's happening behind our industry. Guys, welcome to the final cut.
Hello there, Simon.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for having us.
You've
Lovely
got
to see you.
Mr. Stevens to my right, the CEO
Hello,
of the
Barry.
Fellowship.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having us today.
Guys, I want to start off just for our viewers, if we could, just between you both in turn, to give us a 2-minute resume about who you are, where you are, and kind of where this subject today is going to be lying, what you do in that Pacific. Toby, if you can start.
Lucky me. Thanks very much for putting me on the spot. I'm a veteran of this industry now. That sounds old, doesn't it? 25 years in the industry. Met a girl, opened a salon, opened some more salons, got poor. And so we opened salons 25 years ago, and then 22 years ago we moved into the chapel, the first one, and then we've grown those businesses to 5 sites in different churches around the sort of southeast. And for me, I've always done the business side of things. Hairdressing was not my thing, but I'm very, very passionate about the industry, and I'm passionate about the people in it. So for me, I've always thought hairdressers are one of the most underestimated people in the country, and really unfairly treated, unfairly paid, not respected. And so for me, that started to stir some sort of drive in me. And from that point of view, injustice is what really, really gets my goat. And from what I've seen, we're treated with a little bit of disdain and disrespect. And for me, during COVID, most businesses would have gone to the wall without the support of the government. I think what was put in place was amazing, but subsequently the landscape has changed so much, and legislation hasn't kept up with it. And from my work, I've seen that I think we're the most taxed industry in the whole high street. And for me, it's about opening up that conversation with government and making sure that we get a fair deal. And that's really what I'm all about.
And we're going to touch on a lot of that, because I think to a lot of people out there, they haven't got a clue what's happening behind the scenes. So it'd be interesting to get further forward.
And also there was the SCA that has been set up off the back of all of that good work. Can you just tell us a tiny little bit about that?
Yeah, it's very true. So what happened at the beginning of COVID was that the government was scrambling, going, right, so who's the regulators for this industry? And there weren't any. So they very quickly scrambled to set up what's called the personal care sector. And basically it was anyone that invited themselves onto the board. And I put myself forward actually very early doors. And that was the initial reaction to COVID. And what came out of that was the personal care sector organisation. And some organisations were very efficient at their PR and managed to build relationships with government. What I subsequently noticed was that our part of the industry, or the industry, wasn't being represented properly by people who had worked in it and understood the tax and understood those things. So what we specifically set up was the Salon Employers Association. There was a campaign originally called Chop the VAT, which the BBC started, and then we joined in with that and tried to make that happen in the same way as it happened for restaurants and bars, or the hospitality sector, who we were grouped in with initially and then forgotten when it came to VAT. And that built up huge debt in the businesses. So for us, the SEA was started, Salon Employers Association, which is originally Salon SOS, Save Our Salons. And it's really been set around campaigning for the same setup as they have in Ireland, which has been a massive success. And they've demonstrated clearly and effectively to government that the taxation system is unfair, not just for within hairdressing, but across the board against other industries. And that's what Salon Employers Association was set up to do, and aim to help those salons.
I think you can tell from me as well. You know when I'm captivated because I'm so quiet, and I'm like, this is going to be one of those interviews where you're learning as you're doing it. Colette, tell us a little bit about
Hello
yourself.
there. Hi, everybody. And thanks for having me here today, Simon and Barry. Colette Osborne, different kind of entry into the industry that Toby had. Well, went for my first job at 16 to be a hairdresser. Didn't get the job, gutted. So went into accountancy and law, business consultancy. Then lost my mum to cancer in 2011. Lost all her hair to cancer, should I say. So I decided to go and join college at 40 and become a hairdresser, what I've always wanted to do. So I went and trained, picked my scissors up and realised how hard it is. Accountancy and law, far easier. So then I opened my salons in Nottingham called Heaven and went down that road. Then when COVID started, I couldn't teach the amazing people in this industry how to cut hair. I've got people here who's like, just gods to me. But what I could do is help them. What I could do is help them with understanding business, understanding how they navigate the uncharted waters they're about to be in. Because I previously worked in kind of compliance, I worked in business recovery, at blue chip size. So I started a group then called SalonEVO United, and pretty much taught people how to read how to do cash flow, how to navigate kind of grants, how to apply for different loans, and how to take control of the business and know the numbers. And then it snowballed from there. And the one organisation throughout that period that I knew I could go to for information, I work on facts. I don't work on an interpretation. I don't work on a hearsay. I work on facts. The only organisation then who could actually give me true facts was the Hair and Barber Council. So I amazing relationship with them, Keith Coniford and Gareth Penn and David Drew, and I'm now vice chair. So we are the de facto regulator for the industry. And like Toby said earlier, and quite rightly, when the government had COVID, the reason the government didn't know what to do is because our industry is so fragmented, and I think that's fair to say. So I had a bit between my teeth because I believe that there's unity in numbers. I believe there's enough of us in this industry to come together, enough skill set, enough passion, and enough drive to actually change the shape of our industry and take back control. And like Toby said, when I started on this journey, I'm running a salon that does barbering, hairdressing, beauty. I don't want 3 different organisations to go to. I want one. I want facts. I want to know who's going to give me the information I need so that I'm protected in business. And that's it. So Toby just kind of alluded to the Irish system. I will say the reason the Irish system is successful is that everybody's registered, because I've actually had discussions with the Irish Federation on this. They have something different to us. I think we have it, but I don't think we've really discovered the Holy Grail yet, and that is to get all our heads together. So coming back on from that, then with Toby, who has done amazing work with Helen and Edward in the Salon Employers Association, which I'm also a member because I truly believe in that and being an employee myself. We've joined all organisations and formed, and Barry is part of this as well, the Fellowship, which is amazing. We've joined together to basically have one voice for the industry to government, which is a personal care cross-organisation group. We meet quarterly, we talk all the time, and we're there and we are your voice to government.
Every day.
Every day.
Okay.
This sounds familiar, doesn't it?
I get this, right? So I'm sat and I'm watching it and I'm busy and I love watching these or listening to them if they're any good, and this is going to be amazing. I'm going to be sat there now and I'm going to try and be their voice. All right? So I'm going to say to you, I'm hearing it. I'm hearing SEE, BBC. I'm hearing all this and I'm hearing that. I'm getting a bit confused. So I'm going to clear it up that you're the voice for us behind the industry in Parliament, trying to get us VAT lower, trying to do loads of different topics to make our industry better.
Absolutely.
I get that. So you're making a lot of noise.
I think
All right?
so.
Yeah. Where are we though? Can you say, Toby? Can you say, Colette? You know, we're making this noise and now we're getting a bit more aware. But where have you from where you started to where we are today? Can we tell everybody that we are making a difference here? You are making a difference to this industry. You've galloped pace and you've made sufficient grounds into it. Because I think that's something that I would look at and say, all right, Toby, you speak very well. And I've heard, you know, you speak a young guy at the Fellowship years and the winner of the SalonEVO Chapel. I know that. and I'm hearing some of the stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
And I watched our researcher sent us some stuff in, listening to tapes of you over lockdown. I think it was the Jeremy Vine show where you called in about no-shows. And so, listen, I get it all. I want to know, though, I want these people to know, where are we? What have you two galloped towards?
So what we've galloped towards is we've taken, so I want people to just put themselves in the shoes of the government for a second, okay? You want to actually deal with a sector and look at it, and you want to know how you can help that sector to grow, be sustainable and everything else, because they do truly want that, and small businesses on the high street. And then you've got so many organisations shouting at you. So you're confused. Imagine how confused they are, because they've never even stepped foot in a salon mostly. So what we've done is we've combined all these organisations so that we can go to government with one subject, one voice, one agenda, and we take the experts to them. How far have we come? To give you some idea, Simon, I had the Prime Minister in my building last year. Okay, so
which one?
Rishi Sunak. It was Rishi at that time. Rishi Sunak. Sorry, the now PM. So, like Toby said, we're going into meetings now, and we go in as one voice. So we go in as the cross-organisation sector. So forget all the acronyms of different businesses. It's your cross-organisation sector, okay? We go in, we have different experts around the table. We're bringing expertise from Toby's organisation, from the Hair and Barber Council, from Barry, from MFED, from Sheila, from FHA, and then obviously people that obviously sit on our board. So we bring in Habitat and all the awarded bodies and everything. But the point is we bring all that expertise together so we can actually easily articulate your message to government, because we're the conduit. So what we have to do is we have to kind of almost educate the government on, let's be honest, they don't even know what hairdressers do. They think we all just stand there and do nothing. And that sounds awful, but Toby's quite right. The stereotype is when I walk in a room and say I'm an accountant, I get treated differently to if I say I'm a hairdresser. I have a lot of fun with that, believe me. So how far have we come? I think, personally, the amount of traction we've gained in the last year and at least the last 6 months has been, it's absolutely monumental, isn't it, Toby?
6 months particularly.
Yeah, it really is. So we meet regularly with government, we're taking issues to government, we're lobbying government. The amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, put it this way, if we don't work, we're asleep, because we all share one passion, and that passion is we love our industry. And we want our industry to be sustainable. We want our future generations to have something to take the baton in a few years and to run with it. But I think the key point is, Simon, you said how far we've come. We've come quite a way, but we've still got a long way to go. But think how much quicker and how much harder we can go with everybody behind us.
And what are the key things, the key messages that we're trying to put across?
Yeah. I would bringing key things together. I mean, what we've done with the 5 organisations, we've invited 7 organisations into this, and there are 5 organisations working together currently. We thought it was really, really important to specifically look after the service side of hairdressing, because the personal care sector also brings in retail sales, it brings in beauty, it brings in medical treatments, beauty medical treatments, and we are specifically here as a personal care cross-sector organisational group for hairdressing. I think it's important there's still 5 organisations, because the Freelance Hairdressers Association is brilliant, and it's run by brilliant people who give great advice.
That's Sheila's organisation.
Yeah, Sheila. Yeah. But she does an amazing job for people and sorts them out with insurance and does all those things, and she specifically knows what it is to be that. We specifically look after people who are PAYE, VAT registered employers, and also train people through apprenticeships. So it's important that there are different organisations, but what Colette's saying is it's also important that we also come together and use that voice. So what we do in terms of our success story, the truth is, and it can seem like a really tiny amount, the truth is we're being discussed. We're being discussed by the business minister, we're being discussed by the apprenticeship and skills minister, and we're being discussed by HMRC. And literally we had an email just now to invite us to a meeting with, they're called Department for Business now, they were called BAYS, but they're Department for Business, they're the civil servants that look after our sector, and they cannot ignore us anymore. So that is
through a unified voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the difference is we don't, in all fairness, Toby will know this, we've had many meetings with them, haven't we, Toby? And this one's a monumental one because we're bringing together different departments of the government. But the thing is, we don't go in as one voice and nod our head, like has always been the case. from other organisations. We don't go in and chest beat and nod our head. We go in and go, right, this is what our industry needs. How do we get it? We want it, and we're not going to stop till you give it us.
And we bring those 5 organisations together. What Barry was talking about there's some really simple key objectives initially. Level the playing field for tax for our industry. And I don't just mean punish one side and don't punish the other. I mean, when I do the stats, 40p, 35 to 40p in every pound that comes in the door for a hairdressing salon goes out in tax through labour taxes, VAT or rates. Okay. If you're a jeweller's, you pay between 10 and 12p in every pound.
In the UK?
In the UK, on turnover. Now, that might not mean that they make tons more profit or this or that, but what I'm saying is because we add value to labour. So we work, we pay about 33% of all our costs in labour, and we also then add 20p VAT to that as well. And hold on a minute, we don't claim any back because we're not using that many products in what we do. We're adding value to people. When you add value to a product, you claim most of the VAT back. And if you're a business to consumer business, which means you're selling to the end public person in the public, then you basically collect 19p out of every 20 to give to government and claim back a penny, roughly. So that's the first thing, levelling the tax playing field. And as part of that, we're looking at VAT and looking at the way Europe and other places do it, specifically the Irish model, which has been a massive success. 36% more people employed in the business, more collected for government, and so on and so on. And we're also looking at things like skin testing, bringing together organisations, calling organisations to account for when they just make up rules. So a lot of, I'm not going to say any names, but manufacturers in their instructions now say you must skin test 48 hours before every single service, unless you have a protocol. And all the protocols are different. And some are covered and some aren't, and insurance isn't. So these are things that an individual on their own can't fight for, but we can make a lot of noise.
Collectively.
And we have done that. We have done that.
I mean, when I say we, for the rest of the conversation, I mean the personal care sector across organisation, because everyone has something to bring into that. So we is very much a royal we for the industry, is what I mean.
So harmonising standards is a big part of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is to take bites out of things that you can make a difference in initially. And so those things are happening. We've got meetings with the HMRC and the people that are advising that and insisting upon that. We're trying to. The other part of this is as a group, we're also trying to educate the industry with the rules and protocols that are in place that were agreed in 1996 around what the employment status is and what your tax status is. Really important that people know. Like we've heard today, some people just don't know. There is information out there. Go and look it up. Find out what the tax situation is, and any of the organisations can give that to you. I think
this is a bit of an enigma with people. I'm sure there's guys watching this and girls watching this with salons, because I'm a big believer that a nice salon going into an area changes that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
It changes the high street. If there's a vibrant salon there who's doing fantastic service, doing something different. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there, though, about when the VAT threshold, what should they do? The panic. How many times do you hear this, Toby? It's like, all right, I'm between 80, 90 grand, but if I go a little bit further, I've got to take 150 grand just to cover. So what do I do? Do I stick or move? And I think this is where there's a massive... do you guys advise? And
as an accountant,
to help?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming back to what Toby just said, and it will answer your question as well, Simon. I mean, the key thing is, firstly, the meetings with HMRC, like Toby said, we have a massive problem out there with disguised employment. This is not about self-employed or freelancers. It's about disguised employment, which opens up all kinds of other things, which I can't go into in too much detail. But let's just say that there's a lot of crime out there that shouldn't be happening in our industry, okay, which has brought government's attention to our industry quite prominently. Now, with regards to the kind of tax side, we've all got this threshold of VAT, and everybody's like, oh my God, we're worried about VAT. Do I go over it? Do I stay under it? Well, firstly, if you're deliberately staying under it, you've got a problem, because if you're audited, you're going to have a problem. Secondly, this is why the playing field needs to level, because if you're hovering around that 85,000 and the place down the road is taking cash in hand and not paying a tax, you've automatically got to go way beyond 20% more to actually compete.
Yeah,
way beyond the 20% of VAT. So this is where it gets really, for people out there, confusing. Now, and I think the other thing to say is, I'm not just saying this, but what I've learned in my time in the industry, which has been about 12 years, so I'm a junior, is that, people don't want to talk about these things. People don't want to talk about tax. They don't want to talk about numbers.
It's not sexy, is it?
No, it's not
in our
sexy.
industry. It's
No,
not
it's
a
not
sexy
sexy.
thing. And
No,
there's a
it's
massive
really-
business savvy that's missing out there. With a lot
Absolutely.
of,
Absolutely.
I think the biggest. This is exactly our argument, right? The VAT threshold in this country, it's not like this in Europe anywhere else. It's much, much, much lower. The VAT threshold. So the VAT threshold is down at either 0 or £30,000 or something like that for cottage industry businesses. But also the VAT level for services is also much lower.
Yeah.
So if we all paid 10%, like they do in Ireland, between 9 and 13.5%, depending on their current status. The current legal parameters. They've brought it up and down during COVID and so on. But if we all paid the same from that lower mark, you wouldn't even be thinking about growing your business. You'd just be growing it.
Yeah,
You'd
naturally.
just be growing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we've got a situation where the government think there are thousands and thousands and thousands of new businesses, and every single one of them is scrimping and scraping to try and avoid going above the VAT threshold, which means we've got thousands of businesses that are never going to fulfill their potential. And that's what's so frustrating about the system. And that's where a transformation into similar to Europe or America or wherever, one way or another, they then lower the tax or they change something because as an industry, as I've said, we are the most taxed. And if you didn't have that question, then it just wouldn't be a problem. It'd go away instantly. We'd all be charging the same level. We'd all be competing on the same level playing field. It wouldn't stop anyone being self-employed. It wouldn't stop anyone doing anything. It would just mean that you knew exactly what you'd paid in tax. You had nothing to hide. You don't tempted to take cash and all those different things. You just focused on building a great business. And
so
that's
with
what I
all the
think is great.
changes, with that, COVID's accelerated what's happened by 5 years. I think it's safe to say that the situation was going to rise at some point. It's just accelerated it. And we find ourselves in a perfect storm with the change from the traditional salon model, where people's only option, allegedly, to survive is to turn into some form of hybrid co-working solution that avoids certain payments to keep them afloat.
I think that's right. I think that's what people believe at the moment.
But it's a false economy.
I agree that, but we don't know their personal circumstances that have actually driven them to have to do that to keep the business afloat. So, I don't believe in a complete brushstroke to say that you're now doing something completely wrong.
Well, they've been backed into a corner, haven't they, Barry? And it's usually by the people that they employ.
Yeah, well, is freelance as big as we believe it is?
This is where it gets really interesting. We can only, if you want me to bore you with some numbers, it's not sexy.
I'd love you to bore me with some factual numbers, would be lovely.
So with regards to this, so currently we can only work on the data we actually have. And what I mean by that is we can only work on the data where government have people who are actually registered as a business or employed and on the kind of radar, okay? So currently in the UK, we have our self-employed rate is hovering around 65%, okay? It has increased and it's gone up significantly. It's gone up about 6% year on year for the last, few years.
Yeah.
We have, to give you some idea as well, we have 29,000 limited companies. For those of you that don't know what a limited company is, if you owe a load of money, quickly turn to limited. If you need any advice, get hold of me. Then we have 16,000 odd sole traders. So what we know is we have 48,600.
That's known.
That's
known.
Known. But what people don't know, and the thing that's actually pushing, let's say Simon's in a salon and Barry's a freelancer, you all actually fish from the same pond. There's plenty of fish in there for everybody, okay? So when you're actually there, you've actually set your pricing and you want to charge, we always do this, charge what you're worth. But this is the problem. You're competing with people down the road who've never ever entered a salon, never done any training, never took one of Simon's courses, are not skilled hardly anywhere near anybody in this industry. So we've actually got an underground market that's been allowed to flourish. So this is the problem. Our industry's got this
And this is being fueled by
disguised employment.
Yeah, I mean, a tiny bit of a different take on it. I think that you know information is out there and people can move and people should be free to choose what they want. My belief system is balance the playing field and then let people choose. If you force salon owners to bow to supposed demands that people think are going to be miles better for them, even though they're really not, and most of them, unfortunately, a big part of what we're trying to do is put these rules out there, these NHF guidelines, and we can put them in the notes or whatever.
Big caveat there, though.
Yeah, of course. But I think people feel forced into doing so, and they are forced into doing so. But the problem with having just self-employed salons or that marketplace is that there's no room for training. There's no apprenticeships. You cannot have an apprenticeship if you don't have PAYE scheme. And what we're doing is we're forcing what like you said, what we should have more respect for ourselves and charge what we're worth. The amount of times I see half price for new customers or something like that, have one customer paying full price rather than two paying half price, please. It's let's have some more respect for ourselves and our industry. And if the tax level playing field is level, then it doesn't matter what you choose because everyone's going to have to compete on a level.
So nobody's given a head start, basically. But like Toby just said, right, firstly, let's just get it out there, okay? Running an employed salon or running a self-employed model are legitimate business choices, okay? It's a legitimate business choice. However, it's whether you're doing it correctly is what the issue is, okay? That's where I'm speaking to salon owners that are getting hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of bills.
Fines, you mean, from government?
Fines. Sorry, Toby. Yes, but tax bill and then a fine. But the point being that you're not there on your own. I mean, the reason we're doing this work is so that we can actually have your back. So that we can say, we are going to government. We are saying, well, actually, we've asked for this, and we're going to keep asking for it because they've said no, but they can say it a few more times. We've asked for a moratorium, which is a kind of give us a grace period of so many months, so that our industry can kind of decide if it's compliant or not, and then choose which business model they want, and then make sure they follow the rules for whichever one.
What can salons do? People are watching though. They're watching this saying, yeah, I need a bit more. I mean, we'll put all your links in and out if you want to get in touch with Toby or Colette or their organisations. But if you had a wish list here, what would you wish that salons could, or to get behind it to help? Because it's going to affect everybody that's in salons and doing it right. What you're trying to do will eventually have a better payoff for them eventually. What can salons do, though, to help?
There's loads they can do, isn't there?
Well, we haven't mentioned the survey either.
No, there's a couple of things, and then sorry, Toby. There's a couple of things. Well, firstly, I'm going to say it because I'm a true believer in it. If like Ireland, because Ireland is actually regulated under the 1939 Act. That's why they have the power they do with government. That's why they're in the tax reforms meetings.
Because they're a recognised body.
Because they're a recognised body, just like the General Dental Council, the General Medical Council. I come from a previous regulated industry in accountancy. And anybody who's worked in any other industry, they don't tend to have the same problems we have because they've got a framework to work to. Regulators aren't there to basically call you up. They're there to protect your backside, okay? So that's why Ireland got their model. So they can register and say, I'm a professional, register with the Hair and Barber Council. The survey Toby's just mentioned is incredibly important. We've got a lot of misinformation going out there. We had a report going out recently, if I can mention this, that said that our industry's got growth. I mean, in 2021, actually 2020 to 2021 financial year, it said our industry had 24% growth. Well, of course we did. We started from zero because we were locked down. So then government see we've got growth, and they go, well, you don't need the electricity help in salons because you've got growth. You don't need any help on any more grants. You've got growth. Well, that's not true. We haven't got growth because we've just wiped 3 billion off our contribution to, the economy. We've gone from 8-point-something billion to 5.2 billion. That to me is not growth. Toby mentioned earlier, and I think this is really important, we need to be able to separate out service and retail because we've got one organisation saying we've got growth because box colours are going up over the counter.
Which is definitely not helping.
That's not helping us.
The industry.
And we've got people throughout COVID. Simon, as you know, everybody at home were buying clippers. Well, clippers, because I've got 2 pairs. But the point is that everybody was buying these because everybody thought they were a hairdresser, because they're popping onto YouTube, watching it, thinking, I could be a hairdresser, I'm going to go out and trade. This has got to stop, because this is how, if you looked at any other economy, if you looked at it like this, if you had Aldi and Lidl price competing, they're going to drive their pricing down. This is exactly what we're doing in our industry by not recognising the professional status of our professionals in the industry. So, and the survey is really important, because we get lots of evidence for government. As Toby knows, you go into government, they're not interested if I've got a nice haircut.
They want facts and figures, don't they?
They want facts, they want figures, and it's got to stand up to audit. So luckily, I come from that background. So when you actually present anything to government, and I did this with, we have got massive backing from other organisations as well. I did this with something called the Grimsey Review, which is Bill Grimsey, massive shout out to him. He actually is the ex-CEO of Do It All, Arcadia Group. Arcadia Group, B&Q, all that lot. And he worked with Alan Sugar, Sir Philip Green, and he trained them. And they were doing a kind of report for government on our high streets. And I'm proud to say the cover of this report has got a faded barber cut on it. I was dead proud of that. And what they were doing is saying, well, you know, I don't know if you'll remember, but in 2020, they kind of did the same work, and they got supermarkets who've made huge amounts of profits to pay back to government 3.8 billion in grants that they'd claimed. And we want that 3.8 billion now returning into small business like our sector and wiping out all of our bounce back and CBILS loans. So we're campaigning for that as well. That helps you. That helps our industry. So the survey helps us to get this data, because when we go to government and we do all these data that I've shouted numbers at Barry, don't forget, we're your voice. We need you to tell us. We need you to tell us what you want, how it's affecting you, because you can get a number on a balance sheet or you can get a number in a data set, but we need the real life data behind that. Do you see what I mean?
I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think it is. I'll tell you what astounds me about, I'm listening to it all. I'll tell you, I've got to be really honest, what's going through me at a minute is that anybody who's watching it, or somebody like myself thinking, oh my God, how can you, like, what do you do for enjoyment, pair of you? Because this is like a bit of an edit, but it's all on behalf of
I ring Barry.
Toby,
You offload it onto someone else.
It's amazing what you guys are doing, and I think everybody needs to appreciate this and get behind it, because it's for all of us. It's for everybody. And if you want to do the right thing by this industry, you're going to get behind what you guys are doing. But literally, seriously,
What can we do?
Well, yeah, but you personally, and then I will come on to you, Colette, but you're doing all this, but you've got a very successful salon, Jane, as well. But what made you want to do that? Because it's not like the sexy stuff in hairdressing or barbering. It's not like the most enjoyable stuff. So what made you want to get in it, and how do you get your thrills from it?
Oh, I love spreadsheets.
He does like a
You like a spreadsheet.
He does like a spreadsheet.
Oh, I like a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
No, look, at the end of the day, I fell in love with it, is the honest truth. I think in terms of helping, you talked about the survey, it's called thehairsurvey.co.uk, really helpful. It's for everybody. Please all fill it in, because otherwise we can't represent the single person voice, whatever. At the end of the day, all these organisations have come together to agree these changes. So FHA, everybody in the whole organisation. What made me want to do it? At the end of the day, I'm a very moral driven person, and I might, you know, and so for me to see, going back to the beginning, the disrespect that I think the industry's been shown for a long time, I would put any MP against any hairdresser, and I know that the hairdresser do a better job of their job and vice versa. I can tell you that for nothing. And yet hairdressing, when you go to a careers day, it's 25 grand. You know, come and be a hairdresser, 25 grand, great. So I might as well go and work at Aldi or Lidl's. Well, that's not inspiring. I want everyone to earn minimum 50 grand because of what they deserve. There's so many unrecognised, skilled business or people in this country, and I just happen to be in hairdressing. It's given me a good living, and I do love it. I do love that spirit. I do love those things. I know that people can't just walk into this industry and make it work. And I think that's the disdain we've been shown. Loads of people have walked into this industry and gone away with their tail between their legs. I spent a
'cause
lot of
when
money.
you came in to do it, and you did it at the chapel. You weren't doing this role or campaigning on behalf. So you've actually just fallen into it, haven't you? And kind of work your way into it because
it evolved
you've
into
got to
it.
want to do this.
Yeah, look, that's the only reason you do it. Because in January I wanted to give up. Barry was there when I was like, I'm done with it all. It's just pathetic. People are just trying to score points. But basically, what drives me personally is a disdain for injustice. It makes me really angry when people, one, talk out of turn, two, put themselves forward before an industry, and three, tell you can't do stuff. And there's a few people around this table that when they're told they can't do stuff, go, okay, then we're going to prove you wrong in the politest possible way. So that's really where it's at. And so that's the drive. Look, there's 70 people in my 70 something people in my I should know, in my company, and each of them deserves more. And that's what I'm here for. At the end of the day, they deserve the same opportunity as the estate agent or the jeweler or the anyone else in my high street, and they're treated with disrespect for what they do.
I think we on one of our earlier episodes a couple of weeks ago, we interviewed Andrew Barton, and one of the things that we were talking about was how good this industry is and how good it's been to him, but how he measured wealth. Because I think as we're coming up younger, it's salons and awards and maybe kind of like, I'm doing really well, I have 4 holidays a year, I wear this, I drive this car. As you get older, you measure wealth in a completely different way. But you've all said something, so I'll tell you, if I'm on holiday or vacation and I'm in an area where people don't know you, which obviously I'm global, not local, so that's quite difficult.
And shy.
Everybody seems to know.
Shy.
It's amazing. I'm from Barnsley, but sometimes I can. Our base at Wahl is in Chicago, and literally sometimes I've been 4 or 5 times a year, and so I walk down Chicago sometimes, and people know me, and not the general public, but in a certain shop or a bar, you get to know. I was like, hey, it's like being back in Barnsley. But I use that same example, and I'm going to twist it on its head. If I don't want to talk to somebody or get involved in a conversation, they say, what do you do? I just say, I'm an hairdresser. And they switch off.
Yeah.
So I use it in a different way. Oh, if somebody said, what do you do? I could say, well, I'm actually Wahl's Global Artistic Director. I travel all over the world teaching our presenters how to present. And then you're into a conversation. Can you see what I do?
Yeah.
But if I'm not interested in it, and that, I've just turned it on its head, because sometimes people do the opposite. When you say, oh, I'm an hairdresser. And I think, this is why I want people to get involved and to work with you and to help you and support what you guys are doing, because it's for the better. And there's so many things that you could beat on your chest saying, this industry is amazing. I remember being I went to an art school to give out an award, and this young girl had won this award. And Ashley Jackson, who was a painter up in Yorkshire, he presented her with an Ashley Jackson print. And while we were talking, her parents were there. And for some reason, I spoke to this young lad, and I'm like, your paintings were fantastic. Congratulations on this trophy. You've won an Ashley. You've got a little project to do a painting with Ashley Jackson. I said, oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a card if you ever fancy getting into hairdressing as well, because obviously it is an arty background, especially on the barbering side. A lot of men have done it. And her dad jumped down my throat, and he's I'll never forget him. And I'll tell you what I did afterwards. He turned around and said, and he got the card, he went, do you think she's going to be an hairdresser? So I'm just saying, sometimes people move in. If they've got a creative side, it's one of the things that they move in. She's not going to be an hairdresser, blah, blah, blah. And I felt like saying to him, and again, this is not measuring wealth or whatever, but I just felt like saying to him, just come into the car park, and there's 2 things going to happen here. One, I'm going to kick shit out, yeah. Or secondly, what you driving?
Strike 2.
What you driving?
Me?
No, to him.
Him.
Where's your car? Shall we look at? Shall we see where? Because it was just that distasteful.
Yeah.
Your shit, hairdressing's down below. This is it, and there's been a few occasions where I think we've all had that experience. Well, not so much you. You live in a different world to most of us, don't you? In Poole.
Yeah, that is a different world.
Barry's window cleaners started cleaning the windows last Tuesday, and they finished on the south side by Wednesday. And that's going to be.
But you are right, though. I mean, people when I actually thought, right, I'm going to leave this corporate finance career, resign, and they all thought I was having a midlife crisis. And I remember specifically going to this is through a company I used to work with, invited me to the Conservative Party luncheon. So it's a private luncheon. for somebody, I'll put it that way. Went to it, and we're sitting around a table, and I don't know if you've ever heard of a gentleman called Lord Pickles. He's amazing. Eric Pickles.
Yes.
You heard him,
Yeah.
He's very outspoken. And he said, and he was sitting around this table and he said, oh, so you're still in accountancy. You work for these. I said, oh, no, I don't work for these anymore, Eric. I said, I'm a hairdresser. And he just dropped his knife and fork, turned around and said, are you telling me one cuts hair? And I said, actually, yes, and go and ask your wife how much she pays.
Yes.
But the point is, the whole room, there was only 5 tables because it was a very private venue. And there was 5 tables. Then we all started talking about hairdressing. Because one thing that it will do is, whilst people might judge you in a certain way, there's one thing it will do. Everybody generally needs to talk about hairdressing or barbering. So it does open up that, and you mentioned earlier about, Simon, why do you do it? If I can share this, because it is a bit... When COVID started, I don't know about anybody else out there, I got pretty off with business interruption insurance. Mm-hmm. I was really not happy. Paid all this money out, and it was that kind of, you've hit a red car, not a blue, so we're not insuring you. So I actually joined a team and joined the hospitality sector, joined nurseries, joined different ones to get into the Supreme Court. And then started to bring salon owners in to get their money back. And luckily, we've got quite a few. And we've got one of the biggest insurance providers into arbitration next month. September, which is going to potentially save hundreds and hundreds of salons and barbershops. But what made me do this is I actually started this thing during COVID. And when people realised they weren't able to actually get their insurance paid out, and it was a barber, actually, I'm not going to mention him, obviously, but there was a barber who was really struggling. And I found this really hard because he felt, in a nice possible way, because he was the man and he couldn't express his feelings, that he was basically holding all this inside that he couldn't provide for his family. And one day I was texting him, he texted me back and said, I've got a solution, thank you for all your help. And I was like, hold on, this is a bit final. So I rang him and I said, whatever you got in your hand, will you just put it away? He went, how do you know? I said, what's your solution? He said, I've got life insurance. I said, no, you haven't. If you take your own life, put it down.
Yeah.
And that made me think, why should somebody like that have to make that decision because he has got no industry backing him? That to me
That's horrendous.
It is. So for me at that point, I was like, I don't care. This industry, I love it like Toby. I was in love with it at 16. I was in love with it when I was playing with her in the assembly at school. And you can't sit by... Even if there's not much in you, there's only little old Colette, but you can't sit by and go, I'm going to watch this burn. And I always say, if I knock on the door of Downing Street and I say, right, can you listen to us, like me and Toby, they won't listen. If you knock a couple on, they won't listen. But bring 38,000 pissed off hairdressers who've had the lunch mess with and barbers, they're going to listen, aren't they?
I agree.
So unity in numbers.
Agree. I think hopefully this has been a little bit of an insight for you all as well. Sometimes on the final cut, we're going to fetch different conversations to you, but I think this has been
important.
A real worthwhile stuff because you need to be aware of it. This is your industry, and whatever we can do to help Toby and Colette, some of the information will drop up on the show link as well to see how to get in touch with these guys and how to help them. Some of the information that you guys provide to this, and I commend you both because it's not the sexy part of our industry, and you both have got salons. Yeah. And you both love that side of it. I'm sure you love going into your salons and strutting your stuff and winning your awards and looking at your amazing teams. And then you come into this side where you've got to do this,
But I think part of it as well, isn't
things.
it? Like you said, I think part of it as well is the people that we work with who work in my salon, because I'm their colleague. I work for them. My job's to keep them in a job. So part of this is us fighting for them as well, isn't it? And fighting for their rights.
Yeah, and just at the end of the day, all you hear all the time is the same argument. I've been forced to do this. I've been forced to do that. I've borrowed all this money. And now, 3 in 10 people either don't sleep well at night or are in the worst mental health shape they've ever been in. That is from our own stats.
19 suicides last year.
And at the end of the day, if you have been honest and you have grafted and you have done what you believe to be the right thing and you have trained people and you've brought people through, you deserve someone
to look after you,
punching the door down. And that's how I feel about it. And I get quite emotive sometimes. And
I like what you've just said.
I often go, hold on a fucking minute. Excuse my French. Hold on a minute. That is not correct information. You are talking rubbish. And if no one is doing that for us, then
we've
there's
got
nothing
to.
happening. And that's how I feel the power. You know, I feel that all of us coming together, you know, you've got so much skill, so much knowledge, so much, you know, ability to bring people together. You know what Barry did in bringing us all together again, and the organisations. If we hadn't done it, I promise you, there would be 2 organisations representing us, maybe less, who have never worked in a salon, and that's wrong.
Well, they look like they work for Churchill because there's nothing.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we're fetching it more modern, the arguments that you're fetching forward, and we just need people to be aware of it and get behind it. I want
Absolutely.
to finish off with one more last question to you both, seeing as what you're doing, and it's kind of like unsung hero kind of stuff behind the scenes. Toby, who is your favourite superhero?
That's
Colette, start
evil.
thinking.
I'm thinking.
That's evil. Why'd you give me the question
Well,
first?
let me, Barry,
Okay, so my superhero
Yes.
is probably this is really lame, but it's probably my son. He's just Mr. Laid Back, Mr. Cool. He takes everything in his stride, and he can, without doing anything, put me in my place. So I'll give him that.
Okay.
Give him that.
Who's your superhero, Colette?
Mine's definitely got to be my mum, who went into a salon, had a hairpiece on, wasn't treated very well, not the salon's fault, had cancer, lost her life, and we're called Heaven because that's where she is. And every day she drives me to actually help people more. Because one thing she said to me when we knew she was going to die, I said, I don't want to do it anymore. You're my purpose for doing this. And she said, don't be such a selfish cow. Get on with it and go and actually make sure that people can walk into businesses and walk into salons and not feel like I felt.
Do you have a superhero?
These 2.
Oh.
Well, the question
Hating
was a
that one.
superhero, so Spider-Man, because with great power comes great responsibility. You've been listening to The Final Cut. Toby Dicker, Colette Osborne, Barry Stevens in the house. Hope you've enjoyed that, and it's given you a bit of an enlightenment into what's happening behind the industry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon on The Final Cut.